Hey everybody, Alex the Critic here, and it's once again time to rip apart some stupid videos that I found on the internet. This is Cancerous Commentaries. Today's video is actually the second part to a previous commentary of mine, which would be Cancerous Commentaries number 21. Now, since there are gonna be people who are watching their first video of mine and might not have the time to catch themselves up on the drama I'm covering, I'm going to play the opening from part 1 where I explain the background context of the video I'll be responding to. If you're a fan of mine who's already watched all of the other videos I made on the Starfield drama and just want to get to the good stuff, then feel free to skip to this timestamp. For the rest of you, here's a brief explanation of what the hell all of this is about. Back in late October of this year, the video game developer known as Bethesda Softworks released a role-playing video game set in a futuristic science fiction world named Starfield. The game was a massive commercial success, although its critical reception was sharply divided, with much criticism being levied at the game's uninspired level design, restrictive role-playing elements, and bland storytelling. One of the most infamous critiques of the game, however, came from a political commentator named Heel vs. Babyface, also known as Az, who angrily ranted about the game's inclusion of a preferred pronouns option in its character creator during his second live playthrough of the game.
Bethesda, there is nothing I love more than to sit down, comfy chair, turn on my PC, fire up a brand new RPG, lose myself, think, oh my god, just think of this world, just think of all the planets I can visit, all the immersive things that I can get involved with, all the fights, all the relationships, all the people I meet, all the places I go. I'm so excited to go there. And you know, I love nothing more than, with all of that laid out in front of me, I love nothing more than to be dragged out at every fucking conceivable opportunity so you can fucking current day us. Sorry, did you want to get immersed in our world? Yeah, well, guess what? Fucking pronouns!
Plenty of people on the internet didn't like this very much, viewing Az's criticism as blowing something that isn't even a problem anyways out of proportion. Some of Az's detractors included members of the skeptic community, a loose collection of YouTubers who achieved fame by going after left-wing extremists in the early to mid-2010s, such as Chris Raygun, Some Black Guy, and the Act Man. Feeling that the backlash to Az's rant was not only built on fallacious reasoning, but that the skeptics who shat on him deserved particular scorn for vindicating a character assessment he'd made of them several years prior, a political commentator named Razorfist made a short rant refuting several of the arguments these detractors made throughout the drama. This drew the ire of another commentator, this one being a slideshow commentator by the name of the Ephromator. Ephrom made a video critiquing Razorfist's critique of Az's critics, a video that I felt was, for lack of a nicer word, complete dog shit. I thereby made my own response video critiquing Ephrom's critiques of Razorfist's rant, which Ephrom promptly responded to himself about 2 weeks later. As you could probably tell from the fact that you're sitting here watching yet another response to Ephrom, I didn't think he did a very good job of debunking many of the arguments I made in my response to him. And as you could probably tell from what I said at the beginning of this video, he isn't the only one I'm going to be responding to. That's right, there's one other person who critiqued my critiques of Ephrom's critiques of Razorfist's critiques of Az's critics. God, I need a thesaurus. And their video on me is so mind-bogglingly bad that I have no choice but to tear it a new asshole. Now that I've finished destroying Ephrom's video with some good old-fashioned facts and logic, it's time for me to finally reveal who my other target is. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Vincent Martin. Vincent is a small commentator and live streamer who focuses primarily on video game discourse and general internet drama. Vincent first came onto my radar through a comment he left on my third video about the Starfield drama, in which he warned me that he was going to re-record a response to me. After sending me that warning, he proceeded to leave a series of comments on my other videos about the Starfield drama. And just to show you the kind of scholar that we're going to be dealing with today, why don't I just read them out to you? Quote, "Someone told me this video of yours on the Actman was actually good? They were wrong, and I don't even think most of the Actman's videos are actually good. Not going to do another video on you again, but there is so much wrong with this, I don't know where to start. But if you think woke is an liberal idea, then you are as clueless as the Actman on what woke is. First off, I never actually provided my own definition of what woke is. In fact, I was using Actman's own definition of the word to argue that Starfield still fell under it.
You see, woke, at least in my own head dictionary, is a synonym for contrived. Deliberately created rather than arising naturally or spontaneously. The only difference between woke and contrived is that woke was contrived, but it had some basis in a political ideology.
Okay, so by that definition, Starfield is most definitely woke, because the pronoun option in its character creator literally affects nothing within the game. And, by your own logic, was only put there to appeal to a certain minority, which is people who buy into modern-day gender ideology, aka the transgender community. That all sounds pretty contrived to me. So trying to call me clueless for thinking that woke is a liberal idea is flat out dishonest. The closest I get to saying woke is an liberal idea is when I say that Starfield is woke because it has a preferred pronouns choice in its character creator, as preferred pronouns are an invention of modern gender ideology, which was spawned from leftism.
About how many sliders and other things you see in character creation tools that you don't give a fuck about, but somebody else inevitably will.
This is a false equivalence. An RPG that allows you to change the way your character looks isn't woke, which is what Actman is implying by using it as his example, because this alone is not pushing any leftist ideology. Unless you think making your character black is somehow pushing communism. An RPG allowing you to choose your character's preferred pronouns, however, is woke because it's promoting modern gender ideology, which was not only spawned by leftist academics, but is where the idea of preferred pronouns came from to begin with. But here's the thing, Vincent. Leftism and liberalism are not the same thing. The former is the radicalized wing of the latter, just like how white nationalists are the radicalized wing of conservatism. Sure, all leftists are liberals, but not all liberals are leftists. The biggest example of that are trans-exclusionary radical feminists, or TERFs, like J.K. Rowling, who have opposed the transgender movement for a variety of different reasons, while still holding liberal views in regards to gender issues. Putting all of that aside, in this same clip, I defended the game for giving players the options to play as other races. I also defended the game for allowing players to be gay if they so wanted to earlier in the video.
My brother in Christ. My brother in literal Christ. Nobody else controls the buttons on your controller except you.
Actman, would it kill you to address the man's actual point? He isn't saying that the game is forcing straight players to romance Sam. He's saying that the option shouldn't be there to begin with. If you want to blast the dude for being homophobic, go right ahead, but at least address his point. If I were really the kind of extremist conservative who believes that a game acknowledging any kind of liberal values made it woke, then why wouldn't I call Starfield woke for having these options? Oh yeah, because woke does not mean all liberal ideas, but is instead referring to a specific type of liberal idea that's being shoved down the player's throats instead of being naturally weaved into the game's world building and quest design. You know, like forcing the player to pick a preferred pronoun before they can play the fucking game, regardless of if they believe in modern gender ideology or not. For fuck's sake, I defended Fallout New Vegas for having political factions of all manners because its open-ended role-playing design allowed the player to choose who to support, which is what I want. The choice to be whatever kind of character I want to be without having any ideology forced down my throat.
And here's the kicker, okay? If simply acknowledging any form of left-wing belief, left-wing ideology, liberal agenda, if the existence of the optional pronouns is all it takes to make Starfield woke, then what the fuck does that make Fallout New Vegas?
I've got an answer to that question, Hackman. It's a well-written game which weaves its universe's political issues into the story organically, and allows the player to choose which side they want to support based on whatever politics that they themselves have. Hell, you can even choose to say, fuck all of this bullshit, and just kill everybody in the game if you want to. Once again, not only is this a false equivalency, but nobody is arguing that politics should never be in our escapist media. It's current day politics being lazily shoved into our escapist media that we oppose. How can I be saying that woke means an liberal idea if I'm perfectly okay with liberal ideas being in video games so long as they're not being forced down a player's throat? Make it make sense, you guys. The only other clip where I come anywhere close to saying what Vincent claims I did is at the beginning of the video, where I describe as an anti-woke political commentator. An anti-woke pop culture commentator named Heel vs. Babyface, or Az, didn't like that Starfield had an option to choose your player character's pronouns in the character creation screen, and after 6 or so hours of playing the game, and being bombarded with other things he felt were woke, he went into a comedically exaggerated rant about how studios like Bethesda are ruining his escapism by shoving current-day politics into their games. But the thing is, I never said that woke meant all liberal ideas here either. I was merely describing who Az was and why he disliked the preferred pronouns option in Starfield's character creator. At worst, I just failed to define what the term woke means, and if that were Vincent's criticism, that would actually be totally fair. However, that's not what he's saying. He said that I claimed that woke means any and all liberal ideas that a game or any piece of media makes reference to, which I never fucking said. And Vincent knows that I never fucking said this, because in another comment thread on this same video, he tells a fan of mine that he doesn't even know how I would define the word.
Oops.
So which is it, Vincent? Did I fail to provide a real definition of the word that I can ground my arguments on? Or did I provide an inaccurate definition of the word? It's either one or the other. It cannot be both. Also, you are factually incorrect here. 4155. And the quote, alien DNA at 4224 would be gene splicing. So wrong, it almost funny. So I will concede to Vincent that Starfield does indeed have gene splicing in it, which runs counter to what I claimed in my second Actman video. However, Vincent is still the one who's factually incorrect here, because the gene splicing we're talking about, that being blending human DNA with alien DNA, has nothing to do with the gene splicing that Asmongold was talking about. That being, changing a man into a woman, or vice versa, on a biological scale so precisely that even the most conservative wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
In the future, gene therapy and genetic modification will have gone so far that not even the most conservative will be able to say that there are two genders. If you think that things are weird now, just wait until they actually figure out how DNA works.
So no, the fact that Starfield does indeed have gene splicing in it does not mean that it has the same type of gene splicing and body modification that would allow a man to transition into a woman or vice versa on a biological scale so perfectly that even conservatives wouldn't be able to tell the difference. You would have to prove that this specific thing exists in the game for this point to work. And even then, that still wouldn't justify the game forcing players to pick a preferred pronouns option in the character creator. This would be like me saying, well, in the future, Nazism is going to become really cool and popular to the point where everybody agrees with it. So of course there's nothing wrong with the game forcing you to buy into that ideology in the character creator without providing any evidence that what I'm claiming is actually a part of the game. Why don't I share some more of Vincent's spectacular intelligence? These next two comments were left on my video about the segregated Christmas party that the mayor of Boston threw, the first of which was a response he gave to a comment Akumu left on it. Quote, I was hoping this was going to be about Brianna Wu. This is something I was unaware of. Good to know about. Standard stupid leftist stuff, and why, on principle, I want to agree with Alex here, because I believe identity politics generally does more harm than good. Still, his arguments makes it hard to do so. I hope it just some meta-ironical, over-the-top rhetoric for the sake of humor, but if so, it doesn't come off that way. Beside, I think I'm next on Alex's chopping block. Lol. Oh god. Let's tackle this comment line by line. I was hoping this was going to be about Brianna Wu. Why in the fuck did you think that was going to be the case? The person in the thumbnail of this video is a racist caricature of Asian people, right down to their slanted eyes and yellow skin. Last I checked, Brianna Wu is a white trans woman with red-dyed hair and glasses. How in the hell could you confuse this for that? Either Vincent is blind, or he's from some bizarro universe where white and Asian people have switched places. This is something I was unaware of. Still doesn't explain how you confused this for that, but I digress. Good to know about. Oops, looks like you left an extra about there, Vincent.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
Standard stupid leftist stuff, and why on principle I want to agree with Alex here, because I believe identity politics generally does more harm than good. The point of my video wasn't about whether or not identity politics does more harm than good for society. It was about espousing my belief in freedom of association and criticizing people like Michelle Wu for preaching about tolerance and diversity, only to turn around and reserve that freedom of association for themselves by staging segregated Christmas parties while attempting to stop other people from doing the exact same thing. Still, his arguments makes it hard to do so. Which arguments of mine make it hard to agree with me?
The world may never know.
I hope it just some meta-ironical, over-the-top rhetoric for the sake of humor, but if so, it doesn't come off that way.
Am I alone in not knowing what the fuck that even means?
Meta-ironical, over-the-top rhetoric for the sake of humor? What in the actual fuck is Vincent trying to say here? My best guess is that I'm framing the argument in a way that's less likely to sway people to my side, but as I've told another dumbass detractor of mine, I'm not on the internet to make friends. I'm here to share my opinions on whatever topics interest me at the moment and explain why I think those opinions are right. Whether you think I'm being too much of an asshole or not is irrelevant to me, so naturally I'm going to disregard this criticism. Beside, I think I'm next on Alex's chopping block, lol. What a prophetic note to end your comment on, Vincent, because your video is what I'm going to be responding to today. Before I do though, let's get through this second comment of his, which is the perfect rebuttal to anybody who might still be holding out hope for Vincent's honesty by saying, well, maybe he's just really stupid, Alex. Here's the comment. Quote, 707 is saying, quote, was that a corny-ass joke poorly delivered? Yes. A joke in itself? I hope so. I don't have the context for the comment, but I would assume Baker is talking about the, quote, politic climate. I'll play the clip in question so that you guys will know what I'll be defending. Last but not least, there's a comment that Frank Baker, one of the white members of Boston City Council, made about the whole ordeal that I really want to focus on. Here's what he said, quote, I find it unfortunate that with the temperature the way it is, that we would further that division. Now, I just have one question to ask Mr. Baker.
What the fuck does the weather have to do with it?
Was that a corny-ass joke that was poorly delivered? Yes. Now, allow me to break down the joke that was being made here. See, Frank Baker used a rather odd word when discussing his mayor's actions. That word was temperature, which is a word that's almost always used in reference to the weather. I understand that temperature has multiple meanings and that Baker was using the one that makes more sense in this context, which I'm putting up on the screen right now, but because the weather is what people are going to think of when they read or hear the word temperature, I decided to poke fun at Baker for this by pretending as though he was saying that the current weather was what made what Mayor Wu did wrong. Try saying that 5 times fast. Which was why I played the clip of Technicals asking,
what the fuck does the weather have to do with it?
I then clearly acknowledged that I was making a stupid, poorly delivered joke which relied on this exact wordplay by directly saying so in the video. Was that a corny-ass joke that was poorly delivered? Yes. You might be saying to yourself, well, of course that's what you meant, Alex. The joke was plain as day. To which my response is, exactly. It should be obvious to anyone with even a single-digit IQ that when I said, was that a corny-ass joke that was poorly delivered? Yes. I wasn't making a joke, but rather commenting on how the joke I just made a sentence ago was stupid. Yet, Vincent here seems to be having trouble connecting the dots, which, again, should not be possible. I made my joke, and my comment about the joke, as transparent as I could have. What else could I have said that would make my intentions any more apparent? Unless you are deaf, brain dead, or severely mentally handicapped, there is no way in hell that you could misunderstand what I was doing in this clip this badly. And yet Vincent opens his comment with a fucking facepalm emoji. As if I'm the idiot who genuinely thought that Baker was talking about the weather. It's one thing to write a stupid comment, but to write a stupid comment while thinking that you're the intelligent one is a whole new layer of infuriating. Also, I don't have the context for this comment. I'm sorry, what? I literally left a link to the article in which Baker provided this quote in the description of my video. All you had to do to gather the context for his quote was to click it and read the article for yourself.
Read, nigga, read!
Now let me ask you guys something. If Vincent's comments are already this stupid, incomprehensible, and downright deceptive, then why should I listen to whatever he had to say about me in his video? What chance do you honestly think he has to make even a single cogent criticism of any of my arguments? Having already watched the video for myself, I have an answer to that. 0. But of course, seeing is believing, and so, without further ado, let's finally put an end to this retarded drama by covering it. Editor, roll the footage.
Fancy living, here we come.
He's blowing it all out of proportion? Oh no, someone blowing something out of proportion in a video game so they can rant about it for comedic effect. Golly gee willikers, I hope nobody makes an entire fucking YouTube genre like that. In 2004, you should know all about 2004, seeing as that's where your politics flash froze.
See, that's a hominem attack.
No, it isn't. If you'll notice, before Razorfist insults Angry Joe's politics for being stuck in the year 2004, he makes a legitimate argument about how the people who are critiquing Az for blowing the preferred pronouns option out of proportion are wrong because his rant about said choice was supposed to be seen as funny.
Or at least close enough as it currently stands in this video.
It either is or it isn't an ad hominem. There is no in between here, Vincent.
Not just an insult.
Attacking the person. This fallacy occurs when, instead of addressing someone's argument or position, you irrelevantly attack the person or some aspect of the person who is making the argument. The fallacious attack can also be direct to membership in a group or institution. The last part is referring to guilty by association.
While I don't disagree with the definition of ad hominem that Akumu laid out for us, I still don't understand how Razorfist's argument counts as one.
Explaining it to, I guess, slideshow commentary people, but simply dismissing someone else's claim, critique, opinion, just by attacking their character or credibility or some other source instead of actually addressing what's being said.
Stop repeating the definition of ad hominem and just explain how Razorfist's argument counts as one.
But calling that is what Razorfist is doing might be a little off.
Then why are you bringing any of this up?
I mean, he is sort of lumping people in, this loosely categorized group of people.
Which people is Razorfist lumping into a general category? What general category are people being lumped into?
Always hard to judge a logical fallacy.
Once again, if you're not sure whether or not Razorfist pulled an ad hominem, then why are you wasting our time with this shit?
And you never just want to use it as a point in its own. You need to explain the problems with it.
Wait a minute. You need to explain the problems with it?
You need to explain the problems with it.
Are you telling Razorfist that he has to explain why people's arguments shouldn't be composed of only ad hominems? I genuinely don't understand the point Vincent's making here.
Just because something could be considered a logical fallacy does not mean it's incorrect. It matters about the context. So let's go on with the context of this.
Oh, okay. So everything that Vincent has said up to now was just a setup for the eventual argument between me and Ephrom. That's kinda weird, considering that I don't recall ever bringing up ad hominems in my original commentary on Ephrom, but let's see where Vincent takes this.
Okay, first off, this tweet doesn't actually see Angry Joe saying that this is being blown out of proportion and is more him making fun of the idea of complaining about something being woke in the first place by sarcastically suggesting a review show that rates things based on how woke they are.
Ephrom, the punchline to Angry Joe's joke is that Az is blowing something out of proportion.
Wrong. And a fail by Alex the Critic, because the quote tweet in Angry Joe's joke tweet, well, besides Razor Fist throwing it up on the screen in his little Starfield rant video, and it does have some sort of adjacent association with this whole mess.
Wasn't Razorfist's entire video a response to the outcry against Az's rant? Wouldn't that make Angry Joe's tweet absolutely relevant?
But still, it's maybe more of a fail by whoever flashed that tweet up on the screen during that sort of section of the video that continued in this sort of cascade failure down the line from Ephrom to Alex here.
Then why did Angry Joe say it while quote tweeting Dan Vasc and not Az?
Okay, so what exactly did Ephrom notice again? The main point of my contention was that the punchline to Angry Joe's joke was that the preferred pronouns choice in Starfield's character creator was being blown out of proportion. Ephrom pointing out that I misidentified the target of this joke, which was Dan Vasc and not Az, doesn't actually refute the point I was making, which is further evidenced by the fact that Ephrom himself conceded it.
Oh, but I'm nitpicking. This point is actually fairly decent, admittedly. I assumed there was a bigger difference than there actually was from what Razorfist described and from what I described, and that's a mistake on my part. Hey, I make those sometimes.
So much for him noticing this apparent error I made.
A few moments later.
Why would he be making fun of that if he didn't think that doing so is akin to blowing something out of proportion? Even if you want to argue that Angry Joe is instead making fun of Az for placing far too much emphasis on whether or not a game is woke as opposed to whether or not it's actually any good, or for being a dishonest grifter who doesn't actually care about any of the issues he champions, he would still essentially be joking that Az is blowing something out of proportion.
Okay, let's just say for the sake of argument, that Joe's tweet was about Az's rant and, you know, that cowardly subtweeting way. Probably not too far off, but who knows how exact that is.
Joe's tweet was in response to Dan Vasc, who explicitly name-dropped Starfield in his original tweet. And he calls the game woke. Say, what did Az criticize Starfield for doing again? Oh yeah, shoving in modern-day political ideology where it shouldn't belong.
Sorry, did you want to get immersed in our world? Yeah, well, guess what? Fucking pronouns! Fucking gender ambiguity! Fucking current-day Californian shit! Because that's all we fucking know! Because we're boring!
And guess what, Vincent? Current-day political ideologies being shoved into pieces of media where they shouldn't be is usually what it takes for something to be deemed woke. And before you try to argue, well, that's not why Dan is calling Starfield woke, so Angry Joe's tweet can't have been about Az's rant or what was said in it, I would like to remind you that he was the one who made the rant go viral in the first place by posting it to Twitter with a supportive message attached to it. And also, this supportive reply that Dan left to somebody who agreed with the points Az was making in his rant should make it clear that Dan is calling Starfield woke because it has a preferred pronouns choice in its character creator. For fuck's sake, the dude refunded the game because he felt Bethesda, quote, stained it with ideological clown world bullshit. So I don't think it's too much of a logical stretch to assume that Angry Joe's joke was poking fun at Az and his supporters for blowing the choice out of proportion. What are you fucking talking about?
To assume Angry Joe with this joke tweet is assuming that Az is blowing something out of proportion is assuming a lot of things that really can't be determined. I mean, Alex the critic could be correct here, but also he could be very wrong.
So I would just like to point out to you viewers at home that Vincent didn't actually present an argument here. He just says that my interpretation of Angry Joe's tweet assumes a lot of things about Angry Joe, but he doesn't even explain what assumptions my interpretation relies on. So even if I did come to the wrong conclusion about Angry Joe's tweet, I don't even know how I'm supposed to rectify this fucking mistake so that I don't make it again in the future because Vincent won't explain what mistake I made.
Still, Jesus Christ, how have we gotten to this point that even a joke tweet that is flashed on the screen during a rant has to be, you know, the initial point of criticism or analysis in this particular thing? I swear to God, commentary is doomed if this is the future.
Yo, don't blame that on me, dude. I did not force Ephrom to misinterpret Angry Joe's tweet. Also, you aren't one to talk, given that you spurged out over a joke question that Kretosis asked you during a Twitter slap fight that the two of you had.
If you ever start to get close to nailing him on any point he's made that he's wrong about, he will always try to distract and deflect. For example, in one of his tweets he posted a lame-ass meme saying that the point was to say that he's not the only one to not like my videos. Here's my response. Vincent, honest question, how fucking retreaded are you? You realize that doesn't actually prove anything, right? First of all, anyone who gets even moderately big on the internet will have people who dislike or hate them, whether for legitimate reasons or not. You're a fan of Mahler. Look at how many people talk shit about him in his videos. Is that now proof that he's somehow not good? Secondly, I'm critical of a popular video by a popular YouTuber defending a popular game made by a popular company. It is inevitable that I'm going to get people who are going to hate me and my content purely because I've said something they don't like about something they do like, regardless of how true or accurate it may or may not be. Essentially, by posting these gay-ass cringe memes, you've proven nothing, except that people have made gay-ass cringe memes about me. Shock horror, how will I ever recover? It is abundantly clear you are not cut out for these kinds of discussions in the slightest. You're either incredibly stupid or incredibly dishonest, or both, and based on all the shit I've had to deal with from you, I'd say it's both. You really need to learn to accept an L, because for the past year you've done nothing but build a collection of L's from trying to come at me. My main point is how anyone even somewhat big gets criticism, and you are guaranteed to receive criticism, be it legitimate or not, when you're critical of something that is beloved. Will he address this argument, or will he jump for a chance to avoid having to realize what he said was fucking stupid? Naturally, he avoids having to deal with the actual argument. My honest question in that tweet was clearly just an insult and nothing more, yet he latches onto it with a goddamn death grip to avoid actually having to respond to the substance of what I said, because he can't reconcile that what he said was stupid and can equally be applied to the people he likes.
Hypocrisy, thy name is Vincent Martin.
Frankly, from my personal perspective, my impression of this particular joke is that Angry Joe is trying to make the point that the politics of the game have sort of taken over priority of the, actual quality of the media being made.
Wait a minute, Vincent. What are you trying to tell me here? That Angry Joe is saying that Starfield's detractors are putting more emphasis on its political leanings than the actual game itself? Man, I wonder what you would call that. I believe it's when you take something insignificant and explode it into a larger deal than it originally was. For those of you who are not getting the point that I'm making here through sarcasm, it's that Vincent accused me of coming to the wrong conclusion about Angry Joe's tweet.
To assume Angry Joe with this joke tweet is assuming that Az is blowing something out of proportion, is assuming a lot of things that really can't be determined.
And yet he himself is coming to the exact same conclusion.
to Alex's credit, he sort of puts that subjective point out there, but he still sees that as blowing out of proportion.
Yeah, because that's what it is. If you feel that people are placing more emphasis on the political leanings of the game instead of the elements of it that you think are way more important, like the gameplay itself, then by definition, that means you think Az and his supporters are blowing something out of proportion by ranting about said political leanings, which would make that the punchline to Angry Joe's joke.
Just a matter of perspective. I don't know why it's worth quibbling over this definition.
First off, we're not quibbling over definitions, we're quibbling over intentions. Second off, once again, put the onus for this on Ephrom. I didn't force him to make a shitty video about this drama.
Something you should never do with leftists. There's probably other types of people you shouldn't do with it, who are too particularly anal in particular.
Well, I appreciate the concern, Vincent, but I'll respond to whoever the hell I want to, thank you very much.
Because everyone wants to mind read and psychoanalyze this day, and don't just take a joke for a joke. There has to be a deeper meaning behind it. And maybe there is, but maybe there isn't.
Alright, let me turn your logic back around on you since you refuse to make an actual argument against what I said. Perhaps Angry Joe's tweet was just an innocent joke with no deeper meaning behind it, but maybe it's not.
And this also reveals the issue with the AVGN comparison more generally, because even ignoring the fact that, yeah, some of these people might not like the AVGN and the angry video game style of reviewing more generally, which is perfectly possible.
Perfectly possible, but not relevant in the slightest.
I'll agree.
Hey, there we go, guys. Vincent said that he agreed with this point of mine. Score 1 for Alex.
Frankly, I have no clue why it was even brought up in the Razor Fist video, except maybe to, sort of straw man the arguments of the people Razor Fist was sort of talking about.
Oh, I see. So when you said you were agreeing with me, you were actually being sarcastic. I get you, Vincent, I get you. Allow me to respond with my own sarcastic comment. The point you just made was the greatest and most intellectually sound one I've ever heard. Alright, sarcasm over, here's my actual response. First of all, the reason Razorfist made the comparison between Az and the AVGN was to explain that the anger Az exhibited towards Starfield's preferred pronouns option in his original rant was done for comedic purposes. Much like how the AVGN's angry rants about the 30-year-old NES games he reviews are done for comedic purposes. Therefore, it is wrong for people to dismiss Az's points because he was, quote, blowing something out of proportion, since his exaggeration of how pissed off he felt about the preferred pronouns option in Starfield's character creator and how big of a deal breaker it was for him was supposed to make people laugh. Second of all, how was Razorfist strawmanning anyone? What was the real argument that was being strawmanned here? Are you gonna explain any of your contentions, or are you just going to follow Ephrom's example and keep begging the question?
Before he moved on to, some political point that had nothing to actually do with the actual game in the, the rant that the video's titled after.
Hey moron, Razorfist's video was not about Starfield itself. It was about the fallout from Az's rant about Starfield's character creator having a preferred pronouns option in it. How do I know this? Well, because the title of the video is Of Pronouns and Planetoids, a Starfield Rant. He even opens the video by explaining that Az's rant is what he's going to be covering.
So somewhere beneath the boulder you've all been living under, you may have caught a bracing whiff of a slight controversy as it relates to President Games A Starfield. My man Az, whose company I've been privileged to share in a fair few editions of Friday Night Tights, elected to stream the game Starfield when it entered early release late last week, making his one of the very first live exhibitions of the title itself. He settled in, ass cavity lovingly cradled in a finely crafted gamer's chair, and started on down that space highway. Only, for the first time ever in a first-party Bethesda release, to be promptly pulled the fuck over by the pronoun police.
That's why he went into a political point that, quote, had nothing to do with the game that the video was titled after. But why would we let reality get in the way of our narrative?
Still, it is curious, and frankly, I can't really tell why Ephrom hyper-focused on the angry video game nerd reference for really as long as he did.
The answer is simple, Vincent. Because unlike you, Ephrom actually had an argument to make against what Razorfist was saying. It was a stupid argument, but at least it was a fucking argument.
And, you know, instead of really just pointing out what I just did.
Nigga, the only thing that you pointed out is that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Oh, if you're wondering why I sort of alluded to what Razorfist was doing was considered straw man in a certain way, it's because he did not use a direct quote from anyone who really argued this point. He figured if this is what everyone was arguing, he would be able to pull someone actually saying this.
You're right, Vincent. I too am sad that Razorfist didn't provide any evidence of people arguing that Az was blowing something out of proportion. Oh wait, yes he did, you fucking liar! First off, what about all of the joke tweets that he highlighted throughout his fucking video? Jokes whose punchlines are that Az is blowing something out of proportion. Did you just forget about those, Vincent? Even if you want to argue that all of those tweets shouldn't be taken seriously as evidence because they're jokes, there was also this tweet Razorfist threw up from the Actman, which once again, I don't think was a joke. And before you try to argue that Actman never said that Az was blowing this preferred pronouns choice out of proportion, and therefore this tweet isn't in reference to his response to Az's rant, let me read out the first tweet he ever posted about the situation that caused me to get involved in it. Quote, gorilla-shaped man on the verge of crying because Starfield lets you pick pronouns at the start of the game and then it's never brought up again. Somebody please shoot this guy with a bear tranquilizer, he's going to attack someone. Now, I don't know about you, Vincent, but to me, it certainly sounds like Actman is saying that Az is blowing this out of proportion. No evidence, my ass.
But you know what? Simplify, reduce it, generalize the people you want to argue with.
Yeah, I can see how you would think Razorfist was doing all of those things if you don't actually watch the video.
That's not necessarily straw manning someone. I think there's another term like jelly manning. Not gonna say Razorfist was doing either one.
Jesus, I feel like I owe Ephrom an apology for saying that his video was padded with meaningless bullshit. Because this video is a far worse example of that. This is like the 4th or 5th example of him accusing Razorfist of doing something before going back and saying, well, actually, I'm not sure if Razorfist did in fact do what I'm accusing him of. Nigga, make a claim and fucking stick to it.
Still, I could be wrong, but that really is the impression I get from at least this part of his own video.
You know what, guys? I think I finally get it. Vincent wants to make non-committal claims so that in case somebody calls him out on his shit, he can just say, well, I wasn't definitively accusing anyone of doing anything. I just said that it appeared that way to me, and I even said there's a chance I could be wrong. So you can't get onto me for falsely accusing anyone of anything because I never actually did accuse them of anything. That kind of weaselly argumentation is straight out of the leftists' playbook.
Seemed both avowed lefties and fence-sitting skepticunts alike all decided to form a douchebag drum circle to shit on this guy. The Act Ma'am, some hack guy, Priss Gay Run. I didn't bother checking his Twitter feed, but I'm sure Review Tech was firing off with all 5 chins. If they haven't been remotely relevant since the Sarkeesian witch hunt of Aught 15, chances are they were going full mask off on a dude for having the gall to record a funny fucking rant.
You know, this sort of made me think, taking some baseline assumptions that might have not been true and, you know, adding a little half-cocked speculation, really based on very little information given the criticisms that are being expressed.
What baseline assumptions did Razorfist make here that might not be true? What half-cocked speculation based on little or no information is Razorfist running on? Are you denying that these people are leftists and skeptics? Are you denying that leftists and skeptics teamed up to shit on Az because he made a funny rant? Are you saying that these people are relevant? What specifically do you have a problem with, Vincent? What's stopping me from just pulling this exact same shit on you? Why can't I say that you're running on half-cocked speculation with little or no information? Why? Because disliking how someone is expressing a criticism does not refute the criticism being expressed.
Okay. What criticism? Angry Joe's? It really would have been helpful if Alex highlighted what criticism he's talking about in this particular case. I mean, it can't be Razorfist in this case.
Vincent, I am very clearly talking about the AVGN because that was the person whose comparison with Az was what Razorfist and Ephrom were arguing over. Go back and listen to what he said before my interjection.
And this also reveals the issue with the AVGN comparison more generally, because even ignoring the fact that, yeah, some of these people might not like the AVGN and the angry video game style of reviewing more generally, which is perfectly possible,
Ephrom was arguing that the comparison Razorfist made between Az and the AVGN did not work as a defense for the anger that Az displayed in his rant, because there might be people who don't like the AVGN style of reviewing anyways. My argument against his rebuttal was that disliking the way that someone expresses a criticism does not refute the criticism in and of itself. So yeah, obviously, the person whose style of criticism I'm defending is the AVGN, and by proxy, Az. I don't even know how you could miss that. It's pretty obvious that this is the argument we're having to anybody with even a basic attention span.
And Ephrom, he was just talking about a issue with the AVGN comparison here.
Right, and I was just explaining why his issue with the comparison didn't debunk the comparison.
I mean, maybe I missed something, maybe not.
So I would like to remind everyone that Vincent didn't actually make any argument here. The only criticism he gave was that I should have been more clear about a criticism I had of Ephrom. The problem with that is that my point could not have been any more clear. You have to actively be ignoring the video to not understand what's being said here.
The comparison falls apart due to the AVGN complaining about problems that most people agree actually exist.
Is that really the standard we want to set for the validity of Razorfist's comparison?
Okay, good. I'm not going crazy. I mean, crazier than I already am. But again, I don't know why such focus is placed on this comparison here. Maybe it'll make some bit of sense later.
Yeah, you're right, Vincent. Why are Ephrom and I placing this much focus on the comparison between the AVGN and Az? Could it be because Razorfist himself defended the anger that Az displayed in his rant by arguing that the AVGN has been doing the exact same thing since 2004?
He's blowing it all out of proportion? Oh no, someone blowing something out of proportion in a video game so they can rant about it for comedic effect. Golly gee willikers, I hope nobody makes an entire fucking YouTube genre like that.
No. Obviously, Ephrom and I are just quibbling over this comparison for no reason. No reason whatsoever. whether or not the majority of people agree that the problem Az was ranting about in a comedically angry fashion is a problem? Because there was once a time where the majority of Americans thought that black people were better off as slaves. So by this logic, if Az went on an angry rant denouncing slavery, Razorfist would be wrong to defend him by pointing out that angry political commentators have existed for centuries.
Nope, I was wrong. I was very, very wrong, perhaps.
Savor this moment, ladies and gentlemen, because I think it's going to be the only time where Vincent ever says he was wrong about anything.
Maybe it comes back up again later, but woo, like seriously, what's up with this comparison here? Really comparing there being a third they-them pronoun in the game, which, you know, granted, Ephrom doesn't actually see as an actual problem, at least according to Alex the Critic.
It's actually not just according to me, Vincent. Ephrom himself doesn't think that the preferred pronouns option in Starfield's character creator is that big of a problem, as was stated in his response to me.
My disagreement with Az is essentially the same disagreement all of his critics had, that it was a cartoonishly small game feature and he was getting upset about it because he, for no reason, associates the mere act of allowing players to choose a non-binary character if they would like with some political statement.
Which you had to have seen because you played a clip from it earlier in this video.
Then why did Angry Joe say it while quote tweeting Dan Vasc and not Az?
So you can try to be weaselly here and claim that I'm merely asserting what Ephrom's position is, but I have the facts on my side, buddy.
Even that, to the Institute of Slavery is borderline insane. Why?
Because I was making the point that appeal to popularity is not a valid refutation of someone's argument. Az isn't wrong about any of the points he made in his rant just because the majority of people disagree with those points, especially since there are plenty of YouTubers out there who make similar rants about other topics. Just like he wouldn't be wrong if he, as an abolitionist living in antebellum America, were ranting about freeing the slaves just because the majority of people think slavery is a good thing, especially since there are other political commentators who make similar rants about other topics. If you can't understand that, then God have mercy on your soul.
It seems so blown out of proportion. Slavery in America 200 years ago, video games now.
So, are you going to present an argument against my analogy, or are you just gonna keep moral fagging about me making it in the first place?
I'm just really hoping Alex is using this really insane example to be, you know, comical, hyperbolic, and making his point. And, you know, not like trying to say that the issues that Razorfist and Heels vs. Babyface express in their videos have even a small fraction of the same value that those who fought to end slavery did.
Oh, so you understood that this could be a possible reason for me making the analogy, and yet you still went out of your way to moral fag about me making it at all? Again, you have to be ignoring what I'm saying to even come to these conclusions about my arguments. Because at no point did I ever say that people fighting to end slavery were fighting for an issue that is as important as the people fighting against the preferred pronouns option in Starfield's character creator. If you're so stupid that you need me to explicitly clarify that to you, then once again, God have mercy on your soul. But you know what? Let's play devil's advocate here. Let's say that I did feel this way about these two things. So fucking what? That still wouldn't invalidate my point. That would be like me dismissing Vincent's criticisms of me because I think it's silly that he cares so much about this internet drama as to make an entire video responding to other people's takes on it.
Though I have to remark, it seems Alex, you know, in this attempt to sort of counter Ephron's point, does seem to do something that, I would consider appeal to popularity.
Oh, I did? Do explain, Vincent.
I really hope Alex the Critic realizes this point could be used to, make the claim that what Az did in his rant was, attempt to clout chase off the sort of anti-woke movement. And it worked, as Alex the Critic pointed out.
Wow, that was inarguably the dumbest thing I think I've ever heard in a video. Vincent, do you know what an appeal to popularity is? Appeal to popularity is when somebody says that their argument is correct because the majority of people agree with it. Unless Az specifically said during his rant that, quote, I'm right about my criticisms of Starfield because the majority of people agree with me, then him going on his rant because he felt that people in the anti-woke movement would give him attention and validation after the fact would not satisfy that condition, because he never uses that attention and validation to bolster the argument he was making in his rant. Also, are you gonna provide any evidence for this claim? And wait a minute, didn't you start this point off by saying that I was appealing to popularity?
Though I have to remark, it seems Alex, in this attempt to sort of counter Ephron's point, does seem to do something that, I would consider appeal to popularity.
How does criticizing Az for the intentions behind his rant prove that I appealed to popularity?
It just raises too many questions.
Still, I don't pretend to know the truth of any particular matter.
Then why are you flapping your gums about anything, you pathetic waste of space?
I just really think it's funny to joke about that being a very high likelihood given how things turned out.
You didn't even prove how what I did could be considered an appeal to popularity. So if this whole bit from you was supposed to be a joke, the joke literally doesn't make sense. I don't even need to appeal to Az specifically to refute Ephrom's claim. The fact that other huge commentators like Razorfist, Geeks and Gamers, The Quartering, and Young Ripper 59 made videos defending Az that their fans generally agreed with shows that this was not a one-sided controversy.
Yes, of course. Everyone, on Friday Night Tights, the podcast that he shows up on a lot, rushed to defend Az's anti-woke virtue signal, no matter how stupid it might have come across.
Whether or not you think people were stupid for defending Az is literally irrelevant, as are their reasons for defending Az. The point being argued here is whether or not the majority of people disagreed with him.
The real question is, what did people outside this sort of little circle think about sort of Az's take on Starfield and his rant?
Well, why don't we ask John Della Rose, the Aristocratic Utensil, Ptolemy, Alpha Eagle, Cool Vic, and myself, small channels who are not a part of the Friday Night Tights circle, but still defended Az because we agreed with what he was saying.
This weird British guy losing his mind over selected pronouns in Starfield is the perfect demonstration on why we must bring back lobotomies. So you see how they try to do this. You are gaslit into being crazy because you're passionate about just hey, I don't want to deal with calling a dude in a dress a she. Why should I have to do that? Why should I have to play into people's mental delusions just because I'm a normal person? So we stand with Az, and look, he had a very passionate response. Was it maybe a little over the top? Yeah, but this is entertainment. This is YouTube. This is exactly what we're supposed to do. If I need to scream at the camera to get your attention, I'll do so, because there's way important things out there, and the culture war is one of them. And Az is fighting the good fight, and he's 100% right in this situation.
It was never about the pronouns. He even says it in the first minute of that clip. So you can fucking current day us. It is the politics of the current day being in his escapism that he has an issue with. But no, they're too thick to understand even that. And so as soon as he says pronouns, they all call our boy thin skin. Again, thick as planks, nuance, totally lost on them. Do you cretins not understand the very purpose of escapism and fantasy is to get away from something, hence why it is called escape? Do you know what immersion is? And to all the sackless gimps who think, oh, it's only pronouns, like Jenk's nephew, who didn't want to play a game about some specky twat on a broom because he might offend those who have a greater hormone imbalance than a damn bodybuilder, let me explain something to you. I know you people don't think at all because you're too busy suckling at the udder of power or letting it so far up your ass it is using your tonsils as a damn boxing bag. I even said this years ago. The pronouns are a Trojan horse, much like everything else they push. It is nothing more than a subversive power play. If you are telling me that I must ignore reality and adhere to your whims, you are exercising authority over me, saying do as I tell you or else you will incur social penalty for your defiance. Do tell me, where exactly is the equality in this exchange?
You know, I would have thought a guy like the Act Man wouldn't be so quick to flip, and it's so easy to do that now. Flip from pandering to the counterculture to partaking in this woke apologia, defending the position of people that would have had him cancelled. And to be clear, they don't want people with views that differ from their own to even be able to earn a living. Which is why I'm finding his cringe Starfield pronoun take so fucking disappointing, because he's calling out fellow YouTuber Az from Heel vs. Babyface. He's one of those like bottom-feeding eels, feasting on the carcass of modern Western entertainment. He's like this wriggling eel. Watch him nibble the carcass with glee as he flaps about. My kind of content creator, basically. And you have the Act Man, who should have a similar take. Like, yeah, why are we turning our video games into genderqueer struggle sessions again? That's a bad thing. Well, no, the Act Man thinks that Az is out of line for having an issue. You know, Az is like, what the fuck is going on with these pronouns? Act Man's like, shut the fuck up, Chudcell. He's on Twitter going, here, everyone look at this troglodyte, you know, let's make fun of Az, you know, this kind of lumpen, North FC, working class British man. Let's mock his issues with this very overt example of ESG mandated wokeism in video games. Like, oh, I didn't realize that it's not okay to complain about the fringe leftist takeover of culture at large. The right thing to do is just to submit.
Az had his network moment.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
We are all like Az. We are all mad as hell, and we're not gonna take it anymore. We are all tired of ideologies being shoved in our faces, and we've proven this by the Bud Light and Target boycotts. For another movie reference, we are living in the movie They Live. They, whoever you want to attribute they to, the corporations, the government, the uni party, the powers that be, all of them, they are pushing their ideology into every aspect of our lives. They're putting their ideology into schools, news media, TV shows, movies, comic books, and as has shown us, video games. So, at the end of the day, it's not really about pronouns in video games. That's just a start. They want you to comply. They want you to obey. And like the guy from BlackRock said, they want to force your behavior.
The thing that Muda and a lot of the people who are critical of heel versus babyface fail to understand is that, you know, like the example Muda brings up about the loading times, they don't understand they're linked. And heel versus babyfaces says it in the video. He doesn't say those words that they're linked together, but when he says that you have nothing to offer, or you have nothing to say other than more California stuff, that's what he means. He means that these developers, they're so obsessed with ideology that they can't... The reason why the loading times might suck in this game is because the developers are more obsessed about the pronouns. That's why. You ask, why does heel versus babyface making a big deal about the pronouns toggle? It's because the developers make a big deal out of the pronouns toggle. They make it an issue. They make it a point to put in there. That thing doesn't just take a second to put in the game. They actually spend time putting it into the game because that's an importance to them. That's a main priority to them.
You guys probably want to know what I think about Az's rant. Well, I hate to disappoint the contrarians in my audience, but I agree 100% with everything the man said. I too am sick and tired of woke ideology being forced into nearly every aspect of our entertainment. from video games, to movies, to cartoons, to comic books, because it's taking away the primary draw of escapist fiction, which is that it's meant to be an escape from those real-world issues. Let's not stop at asking small YouTubers what they think about this drama, though. Why don't we also ask the political YouTubers who aren't strongly affiliated with Friday Night Tights, but still defended Az because they also agreed with what he was saying, like the Officer Tatum, the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, and Romanian TV.
Let's get into this. So there's a gamer, I don't know his name. His name is irrelevant. I'm gonna play the clip for you. You may recognize him, or you may not recognize him. It looks like he's not in America. It looks like he's from another country. But the sentiment is so relevant to the way that all of us probably feel at this point. And I honestly believe, like, I got chills when I heard him say what he said, because I feel like the crescendo of people just being sick of them ramming. You can't watch a Dove commercial without them ramming armpit hair down your back. You can't watch this without Pride Month. You can't look at the beauty pageant without a trans person being a beauty pageant. You can't watch women's sports because a trans man is dominating women's sports. They just making you be involved in this. I understand the release or the relief or the alternate reality that you can live in and exist in when this world becomes too much for you and becomes confusing, or you don't like the situation that you're in. And I can see the frustration, because the guy's like, I just want to escape out of this and go to a land that I want to make up in my mind. But yet in this fantasy land of created reality, none of it is real reality. It's all created. Y'all have to thrust the LGBTQ in that reality. And they're just sick of it, man.
This chap here, so he apparently had been playing 6 hours of the video game, got to that point where he'd already been able to predict a large amount of the game's, let's say, tropes that you find in the modern industry.
Well, once again, when it comes to the pronouns, people are treating like the pronouns were the linchpin of this. No, they were the first signifier of what was to come. The fact that the game gives you the option to do that informs the way that you're going to view the rest of the game, because, as you said, it's a signifier of the ideology behind it all that the developers
it's not just a signifier, it's completely, in the normal world, unnecessary.
Yes.
So the only reason to add it would be if you believe in the... Why else would you add it?
Everything that he's saying is pretty reasonable. He just says it in a way that's very memeable.
Yeah,
he gets way too emotional and gets very angry about it. And yeah, it's a bad look. It is a bad look. I have to admit that. Problem is that this is just how Az behaves. This is what his persona is. His shtick is, I get angry about things on the internet, just like Hassan does, just like
Carl used to,
just like Carl used to, just like Ethan Klein does, just like everybody does. Yeah. You can go back to the angry video game nerd. It's been something that people have been doing.
Angry Joe.
Or Angry Joe.
It's kind of meant to be an old gamer meme.
People have been getting frustrated at things and screaming about them on the internet for decades at this point. But it's because of the fact that that Az decided to scream about the wrong thing that everybody's memeing on it.
Because that's the thing as well. Like I said earlier, why would you want to do it? And if someone might say, well, I want to roleplay as a transgender person, well, there we are. You believe in the ideology.
2 years ago, I remember people were laughing because some individuals from Games Done Quick had a little folder in front of them stating their pronoun. And everyone was thinking that was ridiculous. Everyone was laughing. Now, current day, if you laugh at someone that does that, you are the crazy one. You are the person that's the problem. If you are the one that's the same like you were 2 years ago, people are going to laugh at you and consider you ridiculous or insane. I mean, look, Hassan Piker here is suggesting that this content creator should get a lobotomy because he doesn't like pronouns. Like, what is wrong with you? You know, how dare you act the exact same way the overwhelming majority of content creators were acting 2 years ago? It's not acceptable. Like, we decided that you have to act differently now. And Hassan Piker, I find him to be a very interesting case experiment because he didn't want to play the wizard game because he was afraid that the righteous people on the internet would harass him. Like, do you guys remember when you had people on the left going around death-threatening, doxing, and harassing VTubers over them wanting to play a wizard game? I think that's even more upsetting than some content creator going around saying that he doesn't like a game because it has pronouns in it. But for some reason, you have all these left-leaning people spazzing out over the internet and doing some of the worst horrendous stuff. No content creator talks about them, right? But the moment you say, well, I don't like this game because of reasons, oh, that is so ridiculous. If it's so ridiculous, why do you care so much?
Call me crazy, but it sounds like these people agree with Az, despite the fact that they're not friends with him, nor are they strongly affiliated with the Friday Night Tight Circle. And before you try to argue, well, Alex, the only reason that any of you people are defending Az is because you like his content. Why don't we also ask what Synthetic Man, a video game reviewer who does not like the fandom menace and has beefed with them constantly throughout his career, what he felt about Az's rant?
As for the whole pronouns debacle, I'm sure some of you want me to weigh in on the whole heel versus babyface Spurgout thing.
Sorry, did you want to get immersed in our world? Yeah, well, guess what? Fucking pronouns! Fucking gender ambiguity! Fucking current day Californian shit! Because that's all we fucking know! Because we're boring! We're so fucking boring!
The thing is, if you know me, you already know I support what he said in principle. I certainly wouldn't have overreacted that much over something that's basically been in every modern game with a character creator over the last few years. Not saying it's okay, it's not. I think it's propaganda, but I'm definitely used to it by now, which is arguably part of the problem.
I don't know, Vincent. What I'm getting from this is that Synthetic Man agreed with Az in principle. So, you can't sit there and imply that the only people who defended Az were his blind fanboys and personal friends who were defending him out of loyalty and not because he actually said or did anything worth defending. Because, once again, I have the facts on my side, buddy.
Oh, okay. Sorry. This isn't the time to talk about that.
Then why did you bring it up? I swear to God, man, I'm like this close to fucking cracking. Forget waterboarding. If there's ever a Middle Eastern terrorist that we need to get vital information out of, just make him watch one of Vincent Martin's videos.
I agree with Alex here that Ephrom can't actually prove, at least with the frame in Alex the critic is given it here.
Okay, you know what? At least Vincent is granting me a point here.
But a good faith reading of what Ephrom is saying here,
implying that I wasn't approaching Ephrom's argument in good faith. Go fuck yourself, Vincent.
Would be that AVGN talked about more, technical problems in the game, such as poor design, bugs, glitches.
So fucking what? Are people only allowed to angrily rant about a game's technical problems? Is that what you're saying to me, Vincent? What if a game's story is openly advocating for pedophilia? Would I be allowed to angrily rant about something other than the game's technical problems then? Does none of that matter? I'm not saying that nobody disagreed with Az, but to say that most people did is patently wrong.
Yeah, it is technically wrong.
If I was technically correct, then why did you bother asking this earlier?
The real question is, what did people outside this sort of little circle think about sort of Az's take on Starfield and his rant?
You know what? Vincent's video is making Ephrom's look like a goddamn masterpiece.
But I'm still hoping this is for the sake of comedy and not some, autistic nitpick that really spent over 3 minutes in reaction to really that one sentence. I mean, he goes on and on to something so little it seems like such overkill.
Okay, I know I already said this before, but I mean it this time. Vincent, go fuck yourself. You are the last nigga on the internet who gets to complain about anybody autistically obsessing over one sentence in a video. You once uploaded a 7.5-minute video responding to a 4-minute video that a video game essayist named Critosis made on you. And your argument about Critosis' dishonest nature hinged on one argument that he gave during a live response to a video that another video game essayist named Many a True Nerd made about Fallout 3. Something that you would have had to go out of your way to listen to.
Creed really is a freaking dumbass SOB because
the claim John makes is that speech can be used to resolve the quest to Paradise Falls. What I'm referring to in this stream is this line John says in his video.
You can't just use a speech check to get the kids free, because it would be unrealistic that an experienced leader of slavers could be talked into handing over slaves for no charge.
That is correct. You can't talk the slavers into just giving you the children. He says 2,000 caps for it. But does he say speech is useless overall? I don't think he does. And I went over this once before. Let's just start from here.
Once you do get inside though, it's a slave market, so naturally you can just buy the kids. For 2,000 caps, which is a lot of money in Fallout 3, as there's less cash sloshing around than in New Vegas. Alternatively, if you just fancy doing a breakout, there are a few science and repair checks that follow, plus some amusing ways to distract the guard, like paying one of the prostitutes to, keep...
There's a speech check there, okay? Yes, Sean says you can not just talk to the slaver, which is true. And this just seems so dishonest.
And don't try to defend yourself by saying, well, that wasn't a pre-recorded video, Alex. I just edited together a couple clips from a live stream I did covering Kratos' video. Because no normal person would put this much time and effort into debunking a 4-minute video that in and of itself is autistically overanalyzing a line from one of your videos on Kratos. Don't forget that you also uploaded a 20-minute response video to a critical comment that one of Kratos' friends left on one of your videos on him.
Recently, I got a lengthy comment from a YouTuber named Pagan, whose podcast mates with Kratos, who was the subject of said video. So I thought I would do a response video to his comment.
So I shouldn't be surprised that a video that isn't even 15 minutes long, talking about a video that is 8 hours long, would be disingenuous and full of incorrect information.
Dismissive right off from the start. I am not surprised either. Disingenuous seems to be a constant in Kratos' vocabulary, so I don't see why it wouldn't extend to his friends.
You do not have the right to sit there and get onto me for obsessively overanalyzing one sentence of Ephrom's video when you're out here dropping 20-minute response videos to comments that you honestly could have responded to by typing a comment of your own. The fucking nerve of this retard, I swear to God. Oh, and remember how Vincent spent the first 2 minutes of his video bitching and moaning about how Razorfist was pulling ad hominems?
See, that's a hominem attack, or at least close enough as it currently stands in this video. Not just an insult.
Attacking the person. This fallacy occurs when, instead of addressing someone's argument or position, you irrelevantly attack the person or some aspect of the person who is making the argument. The fallacious attack can also be direct to membership in a group or institution. The last part is referring to guilty by association.
Explaining it to, I guess, slideshow commentary people, but simply dismissing someone else's claim, critique, opinion, just by attacking their character or credibility or some other source instead of actually addressing what's being said.
Well, what the fuck is this?
But I'm still hoping this is for the sake of comedy and not some, autistic nitpick that really spent over 3 minutes in reaction to really that one sentence. I mean, he goes on and on to something so little it seems like such overkill.
Viewers at home, is he or is he not attacking me for autistically overanalyzing one sentence in Ephrom's video instead of actually arguing against the point I'm making? Good God, can I please get some better detractors? Preferably ones that have at least a double-digit IQ?
You know what? That's just my personal perspective of that and sort of the optics of the situation.
Oh, no. Don't sell yourself short, Vincent. Everything that you've just said was a fact.
Last but not least,
Why is Az wrong to complain about the preferred pronouns option being put in Starfield's character creator? You didn't provide an explanation for why you feel he's wrong, you just said he was and expected me to just blindly go along with you.
You know, the ending section of this from Alex the Critic almost seems to be valid until, he skips the whole section that sort of highlights what Ephrom would consider to be the sort of problems that most people actually agree exist in the Angry Video Game Nerd series.
It's bad enough that Vincent just made a hypocritical point while pulling an ad hominem on me, but now he's directly following that point up with an argument that only works if you're ignoring what I'm saying and acting as if the arguments that Ephrom made for why Az's rant was wrong were arguments that I never addressed. Even though, if you read what I wrote in my skip clip, I definitely provided an explanation for why Ephrom's arguments were bullshit. To quote myself, Ephrom plays clips of the Angry Video Game Nerd complaining about various mechanics of various different NES games, then says how the majority of people agree that these mechanics were flawed. None of this refutes anything I've just said, nor does it really bolster his own argument, since, again, he's not explaining why Az's issues with Starfield are invalid, so I'm skipping it. Ephrom arguing that the reason people don't take issue with the AVGN is because the issues that he angrily criticizes games for having are ones that most of those people agree that those games have, does not explain why Az's complaints with Starfield were wrong, which was what I was asking Ephrom to explain. And as I brought up earlier in my video, Ephrom's argument is essentially an appeal to popularity. The amount of people that do or don't agree with the AVGN's criticisms of a game does not have any bearing on whether or not those criticisms are wrong, or whether or not he's right to angrily rant about those problems. Again, you would know all of this if you had just read my fucking caption, but that would require you being intellectually honest, and we can't have that, now can we?
Which, it seems I'm right, seems to be something about design features, or maybe in this case, the game limitations of the early NES games and the cartridge system. Something about passwords.
Once again, Vincent, I have to ask, are people only allowed to angrily rant about the graphical and technical issues with a video game? What if the game contains the personal information of the developer's enemies that the developer explicitly put there so that they can be harassed by the general internet? Am I allowed to angrily rant about that?
The point being, the anger, although hyperbolized, at the very least feels justified.
Right, just like how those of us who were on Az's side felt that his hyperbolized anger towards the preferred pronouns choice in Starfield's character creator was justified.
The fact of the matter is that you don't have to see or pick the they-them pronouns in Starfield.
Oh man, if only the menu you needed to access in order to name your character contained the preferred pronouns option within it, therefore shoving the option into the faces of people that might not want to see it. Damn, it's a good thing that Starfield's character creator doesn't work like this, or else I might have an easy counter for the stupid shit that Vincent just said.
These are facts, and facts don't care about your feelings.
How are you gonna sit there and play the facts don't care about your feelings meme when not a few minutes ago you were complaining about how much time I was spending on debunking one point that Ephrom made in his video?
I'm still hoping this is for the sake of comedy and not some, autistic nitpick that really spent over 3 minutes in reaction to really that one sentence. I mean, he goes on and on to something so little it seems like such overkill.
An argument that relies entirely on your fucking feelings.
And this next section, I'm going to skip a bit, but there's these questions of why, that this will highlight, I hope.
Many do not feel that such rage is understandable when seeing an option to select pronouns.
Why not?
The sun hasn't come up yet.
Why? Remember, hyperbole is defined as extravagant exaggerations. However, in order for you to exaggerate those feelings, you have to have them in the first place, and if your underlying point is moronic, then your rant is going to be moronic.
So why is Az's argument moronic?
Because the sun comes up later.
Why? Are you ever going to explain why you feel that way, Ephrom?
Well, the Earth goes around, and when it turns a certain amount, the sun shows on the horizon.
Why? So first off, you have no business mocking me for repeatedly asking Ephrom to lay out the premise that he's arguing for, considering that you've asked me several why questions in your own fucking video, such as why I spent so long responding to one of Ephrom's points.
I'm still hoping this is for the sake of comedy and not some, autistic nitpick that really spent over 3 minutes in reaction to really that one sentence. I mean, he goes on and on to something so little it seems like such overkill.
Why I made the analogy between the preferred pronouns choice in Starfield's character creator and slavery?
Like, seriously, what's up with this comparison here? Really, comparing there being a third they-them pronoun in the game to the institute of slavery is borderline insane. Why?
Why Razorfist didn't provide any examples of the arguments he claims Az's detractors were making?
Oh, if you're wondering why I sort of alluded to what Razorfist was doing was considered strawmanning in a certain way, it's because he did not use a direct quote from anyone who really argued this point. He figured if this is what everyone was arguing, he would be able to pull someone actually saying this.
Why Razorfist brought up the comparison between Az and the AVGN?
Frankly, I have no clue why it was even brought up in the Razorfist video.
And finally, why Ephrom and I were quibbling over the comparison that Razorfist made.
But again, I don't know why such focus is placed on this comparison here.
Second off, how is this not considered an ad hominem? Because all Vincent's doing is mocking me for daring to ask Ephrom to lay out the premise that he's arguing for, in lieu of actually explaining why any of my questions are wrong to ask. If I said that forced segregation is actually a good thing, and then made an entire video outlining how we should reintroduce it into society, wouldn't you want to know why I have that belief in the first place before you just go along with what I'm saying? Because we're almost halfway through your video, and I have yet to receive an explanation for why you think Az is wrong.
Now, it's not wrong to ask why, but just the persistence of it in a response video opposed to a conversation is just a bit off.
Yeah, unlike you, Vincent. You're better than me because you're making a response video in which you ask me why I made several of the decisions that I made in my original video instead of trying to have a conversation with me in the comments section of my video. And in fact, the very first comment you left on one of my videos was you telling me that you were going to record a response to me and then tag me in it as soon as it was uploaded. And once again, nowhere in this comment did you make an effort to start a conversation with me about any of the points that you were confused about. But yeah, you are so much better than me, Vincent.
Really? Is this why this video is titled Begging the Question? Because Alex the Critic is begging it?
No, it's because that's what Ephrom's doing by refusing to explain why he believes what he believes.
But seriously, he keeps doing it.
Man, I wonder why I keep doing it. Could it be because Ephrom won't explain why he believes what he believes? These are the questions that philosophers are still trying to answer. And hold your horses, why aren't you going after Ephrom for doing this exact same thing? He asked Razorfist a bunch of questions about his positions. Why am I the only one getting shit for this? I guess if you're on the same ideological side as Vincent Martin, then it's okay for you to make videos in which you ask people why they believe what they believe instead of trying to start conversations with them.
And why I can't answer for Ephrom? Here's a few choice clips from my video on Ask to sort of explain why someone would have the perspective, maybe not why he is wrong, but why what Heels vs. Babyface is doing here is completely retarded.
First off, I don't think the guy with the spelling abilities of a second grader and who has a speech impediment so severe that he can barely speak coherent sentences has any business calling anyone else on the internet retarded. Second off, I actually don't have to listen to any of the arguments that Vincent is about to play for us. You want to know why? Because, as he himself admitted, these are not arguments for why Az is wrong, but rather why he made his points in a retarded fashion.
Here's a few choice clips from my video on Ask to sort of explain why someone would have the perspective, maybe not why he is wrong, but why what Heels vs. Babyface is doing here is completely retarded.
Well, guess what, Vincent? I don't care if you feel that Az made his points in a retarded way. My specific question was why Az is wrong. And I have yet to receive an explanation for why you think Az is wrong. Not why you think he made his point in the wrong way. So thank you for giving me an excuse to skip the next minute or so of your bullshit.
Fancy living, here we come.
Imagine if in my original video on this drama, I just said Az was right and that the Actman was wrong for disagreeing with Az and provided no reason as to why. Luckily, I chose instead to do the opposite by explaining why I took Az's side. You guys probably want to know what I think about Az's rant. Well, I hate to disappoint the contrarians in my audience, but I agree 100% with everything the man said.
Yes, 100% agree with Az, I hear you say. No critical thinking, no variation, no nuance added to the situation. Absolutely no critical thinking required to listen. Just listen and believe to what Az says.
Guys, what is it called when somebody attacks your character instead of addressing the actual argument you're making? I believe it's a homonym of some kind. But what kind of homonym is it?
Starfield is woke, so it must be because of those they-them pronouns. Correct! There's even gay couples in the game. Shocking horror.
Ah yes, because optional side content that you don't have to interact with is exactly the same as a character selection choice that you have to make before you can even play the game. Yet another very intelligent piece of wisdom from our modern day Socrates.
You know what? You know what I can't find in the game? A single person who talks about being the troubles of being trans or being a woman or not taking responsibility.
Okay, you didn't provide any evidence that that stuff wasn't in the game, so I can pretty much just disregard this entire point. And wait a minute, you guys. Remember Vincent's comment from way back at the beginning of this video where he said that gene splicing was in fact a thing in the universe of Starfield? And how that point was meant to back up Asmongold's argument that it's perfectly fair to have preferred pronouns in the game because in the future we're going to have these gene modification surgeries that will be able to turn men into women so seamlessly that even the most conservative conservatives won't be able to tell the difference?
In the future, gene therapy and genetic modification will have gone so far that not even the most conservative will be able to say that there are two genders.
Well, doesn't this point right here completely refute what Vincent said? I mean, if it's true that there's no direct mention in the game of trans people or the struggles that they go through, then I guess by that logic, gene splicing doesn't exist in its universe either. Meaning that there's no in-universe justification for the game forcing you to select preferred pronouns in the character creator. Man, with how inconsistent Vincent is with his logic, it's a surprise that he isn't a slideshow commentator.
Plenty of guns. Maybe it's a conservative game. Ever think about that? They balance out the progressive and conservative aspects of more a balanced piece.
Huh. That's weird. Didn't Actman make this exact same point?
The one-sidedness of it. Asmon, every single person in this game owns a firearm. They have armed security in every single city, even in the bars of vacation resorts on Paradiso. I became a revolver-slinging deputy that used lethal force on the guilty and innocent alike. How much more like Texas do you want it to be? They got cowboy hats too, man.
Look at that. He did. I'm gonna need you guys to keep that in mind because it will come up later. For now though, here's my response to this point. Since you didn't even define what conservative means, who are you to say that the right to self-defense is a conservative ideal? Now to be fair, I haven't defined the word woke, at least not in video form, so let me go ahead and provide my definition of the word. Woke is anything which pushes a far-left ideology at the expense of the well-being of general consumers and/or people. And as for what far-left ideologies means, it's anything which seeks to destroy or displace accepted cultural and/or political norms. You know, capitalism, biological differences, sexual boundaries, things of that nature.
But no, you know what? Equal representation is just a invention of the woke man.
Well, you're gonna have to prove to me that trans people deserve to have glorified representation, since I believe that transgenderism is a mental illness that should not be glorified in our media. As soon as you can explain why people with my position should be okay with it being glorified in our media, I'll be willing to beat that equal representation drum alongside you.
Oh, sorry about the little tirade, just had to add it in.
It's always a special moment when your opponent admits that they're spagging out over a differing worldview.
Seriously, the trans shit with the clone bullshit has had to invent that shit to peddle his BS narrative, and he's not necessarily lying. He could just be deluded as hell with this particular game at this particular time.
So I will grant that when it comes to the clone character, Az was confusing a well-worn sci-fi trope with forced political messaging. Here's the thing though, so what? Az being wrong about this one thing doesn't render all of his other points wrong. Also, you didn't even explain how Az calling the clone character trans was bullshit in the first place, nor do you provide evidence that would back up that claim. If I acknowledge that the Holocaust happened, and then go on a long and angry rant about how anti-Semitism is bad, does me mistakenly believing that 3 million Jews died in the Holocaust instead of 6 million mean that anti-Semitism is actually a good thing now? I'm willing to bet you would say no. Hell, you even acknowledged that Az could just be making an honest mistake due to his delusions when it comes to how he interpreted the clone character.
And he's not necessarily lying. He could just be deluded as hell with this particular game at this particular time.
And if that's the case, then how does it make any of the other points he made about the game in both his rant and his many live streams wrong? Surely you would agree that making an honest mistake every now and then doesn't make you a horrible monster, so what exactly is your point here? Now, whether or not you agree with my reasoning for taking Az's side, at least I did provide a reason. Also, I love how Ephrom said,
However, in order for you to exaggerate those feelings, you have to have them in the first place.
Because it implies that Az is a grifter who doesn't actually believe any of the things he says.
Well, given that I looked into this beforehand and came to, my own conclusions firsthand without, being told by anyone anything.
Yeah, the guy who doesn't even know how Starfield's character creator works, and wouldn't even explain how the clone character shouldn't be looked at as trans representation, or how the right to self-defense is a conservative idea, is sitting here telling us that he did the research before making this video.
I really do think this is a believable conclusion to come to.
Alright, I'll give Vincent credit in that he's actually biting the fucking bullet and just outright calling Az a grifter. He officially has more balls and integrity than Ephrom does. At least when it comes to this specific point.
But hey, you know what? I could be wrong.
What's this could be bullshit? You definitely are wrong.
Sure, Az could just be really dumb or delusional instead of dishonest.
This coming from the guy who accused Razorfist of not providing any evidence of Az's detractors making the arguments that Razorfist claimed they were making, while ignoring the many examples of Razorfist doing exactly that.
But Alex does have a point. Ephrom does not really show the supporting evidence of any of that in this video that he's covering here to come to this sort of conclusion which he implies about it.
Holy shit! Thank the heavens! Vincent actually gave me a point here.
I'll say outright that, yeah, there is supported evidence there in my video. Take it with a grain of salt. I probably have a bit of a bias.
I'm really glad that we're finally gonna get some evidence that Az is a grifter. It took nearly a quarter of a year for this shit to happen, but hey, better late than never, right? Let's watch.
Industrialist. I'm going industrialist. There we go. I did it. What? Name? He, what? What? He, him? He?
Just for clarification, this fucking dipshit didn't even go into traits before he even went to this screen. He's just like, traits? What are traits? I don't know.
Video
I've ever
covered
in my entire life. It sucks ass. It sucks balls. It just sucks.
That was it? You're basing your claim on the fact that Az didn't go into one other menu in the character creator before moving on from it? I'm sorry, but How does this prove that he's being willfully dishonest again? Excuse me, sir, but you didn't look at the traits menu before seeing the preferred pronouns option. Therefore, you're a dishonest hack. Huh? What's that? You're asking me what's in the traits menu that could possibly prove that Az is a dishonest hack? Ah, well, you know, that's not important. I'm just gonna say that he's a dishonest hack and hope that you'll believe me. God, what a fucking letdown. I thought that I was going to get some actual proof, and instead, all I got was baseless fucking conjecture. A quarter of a year, people. I've been dealing with this bullshit for a quarter of a year, and this is what I get. Unfucking believable. In fact, why don't we do what Vincent himself couldn't be bothered to do by going through each and every trait in Starfield's character creator to see if there's anything in them that might have proved some of Az's complaints wrong. Alien DNA. You volunteered for a controversial experiment that combines alien and human DNA. As a result, you start with increased health and oxygen, but healing and food items aren't as effective. Dream home. You own a luxurious, customizable house on a peaceful planet. Unfortunately, it comes with a $250,000 credit mortgage with Gal Bank that has to be paid weekly. Empath. You are deeply connected to the feelings of others. Performing actions your companion likes will result in a temporary increase in combat effectiveness, but performing actions they don't like will have the precise opposite effect. Extrovert. You're a people person. Exerting yourself uses less oxygen when adventuring with human companions, but more when adventuring alone. Can't be combined with introvert. Freestar Collective Settler. You gain access to special Freestar Collective dialogue options and better rewards for some missions given by the faction. But crime bounty towards other factions is greatly increased. Can't be combined with any other faction allegiance trait. Hero Worshipped. You've earned the attention of an annoying, adoring fan who will show up randomly and jabber at you incessantly. On the plus side, he'll join your ship's crew and give you gifts. Introvert. You really need your alone time. Exerting yourself uses less oxygen when you're adventuring alone, but more when adventuring with other human companions. Can't be combined with extrovert. Kid stuff. Your parents are alive and well, and you can visit them at their home, but you will automatically send 2% of your credits home to them every week. Neon Street Rat. You grew up on the mean streets of Neon. You gain access to special dialogue options and better rewards from some missions on Neon. Crime bounty by other factions is greatly increased. Can't be combined with any other faction allegiance trait. Raised Enlightened. You grew up as a member of the Enlightened. You gain access to a special chest full of items in the House of the Enlightened in New Atlantis, but lose access to the Sanctum Universum chest. Can't be combined with any other religion trait. Raised Universal. You grew up as a member of the Sanctum Universum. You gain access to a special chest full of items in the Sanctum Universum in New Atlantis, but lose access to the House of the Enlightened chest. Can't be combined with any other religion trait. Serpent's Embrace. You grew up worshipping the Great Serpent. Grab jumping provides a temporary boost to health and oxygen, but health and oxygen are lowered if you don't continue jumping regularly, like an addiction. Can't be combined with any other religion trait. Spaced. Your body has become acclimated to space. Health and oxygen are increased when in space, but decreased when on the surface. Can't be combined with terra firma. Taskmaster. Occasionally, if you have crew trained in a certain ship system, that system will automatically repair itself to full health whenever it is damaged below 50%. However, all crew cost twice as much to hire. Terra firma. You've never acclimated to space. Health and oxygen are increased when on the surface, but decreased when you're in space. Can't be combined with spaced. United Colonies Native. You gain access to special United Colonies dialogue options and better rewards from some missions given by the faction. However, crime bounty by other factions is greatly increased. Can't be combined with any other faction allegiance trait. And finally, wanted. Someone put a price on your head, and word has spread. Occasionally, armed mercenaries will show up and try to kill you, but being cornered gives you an edge. When your health is low, you do extra damage. So tell me, Vincent, what do any of these traits have to do with transgenderism or the preferred pronouns option? How does any of this prove that Az was wrong about anything? Or is your argument here that there's actually more woke stuff in the traits that Az should be getting mad about instead? You guys want to know what the best part of all of this is? You do not actually have to select any of these traits to move on to the game. That's right, they are not compulsory, so you don't have to choose any if you don't want to, unlike the preferred pronouns option, which was the very fucking thing that we've been arguing about for the past 2 hours. You see, ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when your brain is running on copium. You have to look for any and all excuses to call your opponents wrong, even if those excuses don't actually hold up to scrutiny.
How am I gonna say it's ironclad? Of course not.
Understatement of the fucking century.
That's the beauty of speculation. You make an argument, you present certain little facts. I'm not going to tell people they have to listen and believe me. I'm hoping they'll listen to the logic I lay out and either agree, disagree, or maybe ask me probing questions.
Hey, I've got a probing question for you. Why are you such a fucking retard?
Well, I actually prefer doing streams and inviting people on, opposed to response videos like this.
Oh yeah, that must be why the first comment you ever left on one of my videos was you telling me that you were going to make this response video and then tag me in it once it's done, instead of you trying to start a conversation or invite me onto your stream so that we could have a discussion about this topic. That must also be why you bragged about being able to bait the members of Lio's Senate server into pulling you into a call without trying. Yeah, that really speaks of someone who is an honest actor who just wants to have an open, respectful dialogue about the issues being contested here. Look, I don't even like Lio or his Senate server, but this does not make you look like an honest actor, dude.
And frankly, I don't need any of that to really mock the man-child known as Heels vs. Babyface.
I would call out Vincent here for pulling yet another ad hominem, but, you know, maybe I shouldn't be so harsh on him. After all, his actual arguments against Az are so fucking horrible that he might as well resort to ad hominems just to save himself the embarrassment. And is just trying to farm views and subscriptions from outraged viewers. Even ignoring how he would have to provide evidence for that claim, one's motivations for making an argument does not invalidate the argument itself.
Yes, but the actual evidence, or at least the circumstances around all this for Az coming to the conclusions that he does, sort of does.
Okay, and what evidence or circumstantial circumstances are there that prove that Az was wrong to complain about the preferred pronouns option? Has there actually been a setting to disable the option within the game this whole fucking time? Now would be a really great opportunity to prove that so that I can actually change my mind about this topic. But something tells me that Vincent is never going to provide any of this supposed evidence.
I'm not going to say it totally invalidates any claim Az makes about the game.
Then why did you just fucking say that it did, you retard?
But it definitely does make it seem like all the people rushing to his aid, making it about the culture war instead of, whether or not Starfield is woke or not, under close examination, is very telling.
Okay, so 1, you still haven't proven that the preferred pronouns option in Starfield's character creator isn't woke, and 2, what exactly is wrong with people tying the discussion surrounding the option into the wider culture war? Starfield is a video game and is by that virtue a part of American pop culture. And since Bethesda decided to shove modern-day political garbage into the game, they undisputably took a stand in said culture war, which unsurprisingly was going to piss off the opposing side. Maybe if Bethesda didn't want people tying the preferred pronouns option into the wider culture war, Bethesda shouldn't have put it in their game. Just saying.
Almost seems like Az was moving the goalpost and using his sort of friends to help shield him from his own stupidity.
Moving the goalposts to what, dipshit? Need I remind you that the point Vincent is supposed to be responding to right now is my assertion that one's motivations for making a point does not refute the point itself. One's motivations for making an argument does not invalidate the argument itself. To which his only real rebuttal is, well, the evidence against Az proved that his point is wrong. But again, the only evidence that he presented against Az was that he didn't look at the fucking traits menu in the character creator. And as I've just explained, none of those options really have anything to do with transgenderism or the preferred pronouns option. So I just have to ask, what the fuck are you on about?
Did help raise his profile for some crazy reason.
Hear me out, Vincent. Maybe Az's profile was raised thanks to this situation because he was right, or at the very least, there are people out there that agree with or are sympathetic to what he said. I know that in your head, you can't fathom the idea of people having a different worldview from yours, but that's the reality of the situation here. So instead of wondering why Az's profile was raised, you should maybe try making compelling arguments as to why he's wrong. Just a thought.
I'm guessing a lot of anti-woke people aren't exactly the most intelligent, but to be fair, a lot of people on the woke side are even dumber, so, you know, equality.
Hey Vincent, Dunning-Kruger called. They want their case study back.
The beauties of living in a liberal society.
Really? I happen to think that that's a rather damning indictment of living in a liberal society. One man's trash is another man's treasure, I guess.
And because there's a lot of love.
A few minutes later.
Translation, Alex makes arguments that even I, as intellectually dishonest as I am, can't find some way to misconstrue, so I'm not going to bother addressing them.
Steven agrees that their deplatforming of dissenters is idiotic, and yet he still doesn't understand what Razorfist's point is? Alright, here is an explanation of Razorfist's point that even a 5-year-old can grasp. Starfield having a preferred pronouns option in its character creator is a big deal because modders are getting deplatformed for trying to post mods that remove the option.
Really? Both Alex the Critic and Razorfist is majority of their argument for why Starfield the game is preferred pronouns is such a problem is based on just really one instance that the Nexus mods have a a-hole ban happy policy on that one website banning moderators creating, you know, certain mods to get rid of pronouns. And I remember Spider-Man about getting rid of the trans flag by moving the location to Arab.
No, Vincent. Razorfist and I are not, in fact, saying that the preferred pronouns option in Starfield's character creator is bad because Nexus Mods is banning modders who make mods that remove the choice. case. Rather, the reason why we're bringing up Nexus Mod's deplatforming of these modders is to make the argument that the people complaining that Az is blowing something out of proportion are hypocrites.
After hours laboring in vain to write the first funny fat joke of their wasted lives, they all seem to settle on a single talking point, and what they loosely construe for an argument can be distilled to the following. What's the big deal? Pronouns are part of the English language. This video is just the same as a feminist freakout. Horseshit, I say. Az's video has far less facial hair. But I agree, it is no big deal. And if you don't believe me, suggest the pronouns be removed. I guarantee within moments your Twitter mentions will be stacked to the ceiling with strangers eager to inform you precisely why it would be no big fucking deal. Why, it's such a small deal that when an impossibly based Battletech fan modded the 2018 PC game to remove the silly-ass penis pronouns from the game, it was permanently fucking banned from the Mod Nexus website. But remember, folks, it's no big fucking deal. And to prove it, they'll deplatform you.
So yeah, you just lied about our fucking argument, you douchebag.
But for all of this to be hinged on something that was not done by anyone, at least to my knowledge, involved in Starfield's development, marketing, creation, or anything like that. Can't even say they're Starfield fans, just lunatic identity politics bullshit people.
To reiterate, our criticisms here are not aimed at Bethesda, but rather at Az's detractors. So pointing out that Bethesda themselves had nothing to do with this deplatforming is irrelevant to the fucking argument.
And all of this argument why this is a problem is based on this little instance.
You know, if you're gonna lie, could you at least say the lie once and then move on to your next fucking point? Also, how much you think this incident matters is irrelevant to the argument.
Oh, sorry. There's a little bit more to it.
You think?
Frankly, I'm under the belief that incredible claims have to be backed up by incredible evidence. And frankly, this isn't enough, especially given this is all post hoc rationalization to rewrite the past.
You weaselly, slimy faggot. First off, how are me and Razorfist engaging in post-hoc rationalization to rewrite the past? Were we wrong about Nexus Mod's deplatforming modders who made mods which disabled the preferred pronouns option in Starfield's character creator? Were we wrong about such an option being woke in the first place? If we were, then fucking prove it, nigga. Second of all, you're basing this entire stupid tangent on a blatant misrepresentation of both of our arguments. So you do not get to sit there and complain about anybody else engaging in post-hoc rationalization.
Or like how the leftists tried to do the 1619 project. Let me not go as low to bring slavery in here like Alex the Critic did earlier.
Yeah, I don't think the guy who tried to hold someone else's mental breakdown against them, merely because they had the gall to defend Kritosis when he was slandered by a larger YouTuber.
Now back in November of 2022, I was slandered by a much larger YouTuber, pretty much at random. I won't go into that situation since it's been resolved, but at the time another YouTuber, Brother Near, reached out to me to talk about my side of the story and help get word out that this had happened. It was after this that Vincent Martin started taking an interest in Brother Near, and by interest I mean harassment. Vincent spent months going after this guy using the same dishonest, disingenuous tactics he always does. He likes to start shit, he likes to provoke people, and he doesn't seem to ever concede on any point, while at the same time making shit fallacious arguments constantly, and projecting all of his bullshit onto whoever he's currently targeting. Now there's a great many things I can highlight in this whole situation that would speak to Vincent's character, but there are only two I will refer to. First of all, Vincent used the suicidal breakdown Near had a few years ago as an own against him on Twitter. I don't even need to elaborate on why that's fucked up. It's just beyond scummy and dirty to do this, and speaks of what a piece of shit he is as a person,
has the right to get uppity with me for taking low blows.
My bad. Sorry about that.
Apology not fucking accepted.
And commentators are being attacked for criticizing it.
Oh my god, they were attacked, harassed, for just criticizing Starfield in that way? Please go on about how they were attacked or harassed. Are they getting doxxed or death threats or anything like that?
You know, it's not like we just got done talking about people getting censored for having the wrong viewpoint. God, you know, if you're gonna lie, could you at least not do it right after bringing up something that would contradict the lie?
I don't approve of harassment or attacking people at all. I really frown upon that.
Yes. I, Vincent Martin, frown upon harassment of all shapes and sizes. Now allow me to downplay how the people who disliked that Starfield's character creator had a preferred pronouns option in it were deplatformed for their opinions by arguing that it only happened on this one website and Bethesda wasn't even involved in it.
So, yeah, go on. How's that? No, he doesn't go further into the detail with how the people who criticize the game are being attacked. There is a couple examples.
I'm sorry, what was that?
There is a couple examples.
There is a couple what?
There is a couple examples.
So, in one breath, Vincent says I don't go into detail about how people are attacking Az for his opinion on Starfield.
No, he doesn't go further into the detail with how the people who criticize the game are being attacked.
and then in the next breath, he admits that there are some examples in my video.
There is a couple examples.
What? Even ignoring that the deplatforming that we were fucking talking about in the first place would be an example of people being attacked for their opinions on Starfield, how are you going to admit that I did provide examples for my claim in my video and yet also claim right beforehand that I didn't go into detail about it? I beg anybody watching this video to make it make sense.
I remember the deflection of sort of the criticism of Gamergate, the people at that got a pass because they were women in the industry being attacked. So, you know, that victim status, the anti-woke people aren't actually trying to pull that card now, are they?
I don't know, considering that you just admitted that I did provide some evidence that people were getting harassed for their opinions on Starfield, I think it's perfectly valid for us to claim the victim card here. Putting that aside, what criticism is being deflected here exactly?
Are they? Let me not be too uncharitable here.
No, don't you dare stop now, Vincent. This shit was just getting good.
But what Alex the Critic does go into instead of that is, frankly, in my opinion, a stupid point of whether or not Az had a buddy rant or not.
Which he did.
And really, maybe he has a point about Ephrom contradicting himself here, but it's such a minor, stupid point. I really don't care to analyze or critique it or even weigh in on at all.
Okay, so when you felt that Razorfist was strawmanning people or generalizing them, you spent oh so much time talking about how nobody is making the arguments that you're accusing them of making. And when you felt that Az and myself were appealing to popularity, you went on an entire rant about how Az only went on his original Starfield rant because he would get likes and validation from people who already agree with his political viewpoints. But when I catch Ephrom blatantly contradicting himself, oh no, that's just like a stupid, nonsensical point that's really not worth even discussing, and you're retarded for even bringing it up. Admittedly, I wouldn't have too much of a problem with this if it wasn't for the fact that Vincent is trying so desperately to paint himself as the sane middleman who's only calling out the bullshit from both sides when he sees it. I mean, listen to what he says directly afterwards.
But sometimes stupidity slap bite between two retards can be funny, but hard to comment on.
Wow, this stupid point of ours is too hard to comment on, Vincent? That's more than a little weird, considering that you didn't find it too hard to comment on the fact that I spent a good chunk of my video asking Ephrom to lay out why he believes what he believes, instead of just having a conversation with him, even though you believe that that itself is just as stupid of a thing to do. Although, since I'm on the opposing ideological side, I guess it's perfectly okay for you to spend all of this time putting me on blast for the exact same things that you guys are guilty of, while brushing aside any errors on y'all's part as just being stupid little quibbling over dumbass bullshit that only retards would give a shit about. If there's one thing that I hate just as much as hypocrites, it's people who try to play it off as if they're not biased, but are so obviously biased.
But I am going to say that I find it weird you're using as a jumping off point to discuss this, them making fun of somebody for being angry at non-binary gender options in a video game.
First of all, that was not Razorfist's jumping off point.
You sure about that? Because frankly, I'm really starting to feel like, jumping off something, rather tall at this particular moment.
Shit, my nigga, you wouldn't even need to jump at all. I'll push you off the fucking building.
He goes off on these skeptics for, quote, shitting on Az, which could mean joking about him, but could also mean criticizing him for bullshit reasons. And I have reason to believe that it's the latter he takes issue with, since there are numerous times throughout his rant where he goes after their argument.
Oh, yes, please do highlight a point where Razorfist goes after their arguments. I really want to hear this.
Can be distilled to the following. What's the big deal? Pronouns are part of the English language. This video is just the same as a feminist freakout.
Well, I was actually hoping for, like an actual argument from an actual person. But, instead of that, actually, looking for an actual argument from a real person, a real source someplace, someone like Lofty Pixels, which aren't the greatest arguments, mind you, but still a little bit better than what Razorfist shits out and picks as a sort of a chimera, like, creature from some of the dumbest voices in gaming review out there.
But you made the exact same arguments against Az in your video.
The fact of the matter is that you don't have to see or pick the they-them pronouns in Starfield.
These are facts, and facts don't care about your feelings.
This is not good, sensible criticism. This is just you using this one, two, maybe there's more, but you only give 2 examples and they are complete dog shit for this little rant. Is all the woke media not enough? You have to find the littlest hint of it in a AAA title to sort of go off on this freaking little dumbass tirade.
How are you gonna sit there and say that Razorfist isn't going after the real arguments that people are making against Az when your own video contains the exact same argument that his original rant refuted? No, wait. It's actually worse than that, because Vincent is saying that Razorfist's example doesn't count because it comes from an utter nobody. This is a batshit insane argument because of the tweet from Angry Joe that Razorfist highlighted in the video as well, whose punchline basically makes the exact same point that this random Twitter user was making. So clearly, Razorfist isn't just cherry picking here. Also, at the end of his point, Vincent said that Razorfist only picked out the arguments from some of the dumbest voices in gaming review out there.
Still, a little bit better than what Razorfist shits out and picks as a sort of a chimera, like, creature from some of the dumbest voices in gaming review out there.
Well, considering that he made the exact same point that Razorfist is currently responding to, I guess by this logic, Vincent is admitting that his own point is fucking stupid. Talk about a self-own.
And even even then, he doesn't even really go into the substance of these arguments and just dismisses them as peddly bullshit.
This coming from the guy whose evidence that Az is a lying, delusional grifter is that he didn't go into the traits menu of Starfield's character creator while failing to explain how anything in that menu was at all damning to the points that Az made in his original rant.
This is so demeaning as someone who used to respect Razorfist, how far down he's fallen.
Yeah, you're about the last person whose approval anybody should seek.
How out of touch.
What is Razorfist out of touch about?
The world may never know.
And how against actually discussing things with other people he seems to be in recent years.
I'm sorry, can we throw up the first comment that Vincent ever left on one of my videos again? Was going to leave a comment, but too much to let go to waste. I'll tag you in reaction inception hell. Soon. Sorry about the melodramatic. Best re-record the audio to this before I come to my senses. Yeah, I don't think you're one to talk, buddy. Putting all of that aside, the existence of Razorfist's original video is evidence of him directly responding to Az's detractors. Just because he isn't challenging any of Az's detractors to a debate, doesn't mean he isn't discussing things with other people through the uploading of this video. Lest we forget, YouTube is a public platform where people are free to respond to whatever it is that people upload to it. Razorfist's comment section, along with his Twitter account, are open, so you can express your frustration about this video with him on both of those fronts. Barring that, you could just make your own video responding to the rant that Razorfist made. You're doing that right now, Vincent. Please tell me how this isn't carrying on a conversation about this topic. Also, why isn't this criticism being applied consistently? I don't recall any of the big names that went after Az challenging him to a debate or anything. Why are they exempt from this expectation that they have direct, live discussions with people that they disagree with? Why isn't Vincent going after Ephrom for not trying to set up a live debate with Razorfist instead of making his video questioning Razorfist on his reasoning for defending Az's rant? I think this whole criticism is stupid because nobody should be obligated to debate with someone about a topic that they both disagree with one another on. But if you're going to make that criticism, at least 1, be consistent about it, and 2, hold yourself to that standard, nigga.
But you know what? I'm not going to show any evidence for that. You can look it up yourself.
I find it funny that the man who criticized Razorfist for not providing any evidence of the arguments that he claimed Az's detractors were making is now saying that he's not going to provide any evidence for his own claims and that the audience can just look it up themselves.
But you know what? I'm not going to show any evidence for that. You can look it up yourself.
You cannot write better irony than that.
He'll talk with friends, but those who argue against him, generally you don't see it happening very often. Doesn't happen with Az either. Whoa, what a coincidence.
Was going to leave a comment, but too much to let go to waste. I'll tag you in reaction inception hell. Soon. Sorry about the melodramatic. Best re-record the audio to this before I come to my senses.
And again, I don't know if this could really be considered a straw man or jelly man or, any of those variations.
I'm sorry for sounding like a broken record here, but if you aren't sure whether or not Razorfist strawmanned anyone, then why are you bringing it up?
I mean, when you have plenty of big-name morons such as the Ackman and Vosh to deflect from the actual arguments being made, why even bother with that? Why not pick from them?
Hey, so remember that point Vincent made about the guns in Starfield that I told you guys to remember?
Or not taking responsibility and plenty of guns. Maybe it's a conservative game. Ever think about that? They balance out the progressive and conservative aspects more a balanced piece.
Yeah, I told you guys to remember it because it bites Vincent in the ass here, since if you'll also recall, it was one of the exact same points that the Actman brought up in defense of Starfield.
The one-sidedness of it. Asmon, every single person in this game owns a firearm. They have armed security in every single city, even in the bars of vacation resorts on Paradiso. I became a revolver-slinging deputy that used lethal force on the guilty and innocent alike. How much more like Texas do you want it to be? They got cowboy hats too, man.
Allow me to break down why this bit Vincent in the ass. If you yourself are using arguments that the Actman has made, then your whole point about how Razorfist is merely cherry-picking the weakest arguments that people made against Az goes right out the window.
I really don't see why he didn't just go with someone really dumb as an example and make them the representative for the counter argument.
Wait, you're upset that Razorfist didn't make the dumbest argument he could find the representative for all of Az's detractors? But that would... What? I think, and I'm not entirely sure about this, but I think that what Vincent is saying is that if Razorfist is only going to cherry-pick the dumbest arguments against Az that he can find, then he should make sure that those arguments are the actual dumbest ones out there. But that point is still fucking stupid because he described the Actman and Vosh as big-name morons.
I mean, when you have plenty of big-name morons such as the Actman and Vosh to deflect from the actual arguments being made.
So, doesn't Vincent consider them dumb enough to use as representatives for Az's detractors by default?
But he can't even do that in this rant. Maybe because of the rant style, to be fair, but...
I think it has more to do with the fact that I'm not even entirely sure what you're asking of Razorfist here.
Oh, I don't know why you would defend the validity of this rant in that case, because it's not very hard-hitting data focused.
Yeah, unlike your video, which presented such incredible data as Az is wrong because he didn't look at one section of Starfield's character creator that nobody's even sure proves anything because I didn't bother to explain to the audience what was even in that section. Yep, I can just see how superior this video is when it comes to presenting evidence.
And frankly, the facts that the skeptics get brought into this really just blows my mind.
Why? They were part of the discourse surrounding Az's rant, and Razorfist's video was about the discourse surrounding Az's rant. What is mind-blowing about that?
Pronouns, particularly those you have no option to disable in-game, aren't a feature any more than some asshole dev deciding your main character's named Humperdinck or some shit and not allowing you to change it would be a fucking feature. This isn't the addition of options, it's the excision of them.
For the love of all things holy, one of the tweets Razorfist cited when discussing these skeptics was from the Actman, and something tells me he wasn't joking when he posted this. So unless you want to tell me otherwise, I think you need to get your head re-examined.
Again, since when has the Actman really been part of the skeptics that Razorfist, warned people about years ago?
That's a good question, Vincent. Why don't we let the Actman himself answer that?
You guys use the word woke too liberally. That's a funny pun. Like when people call someone a fascist, my first instinct is just to assume the exact opposite, because unfortunately my parents did read me the tale of the boy who cried wolf, rendering me a skeptic for the rest of my life.
And hey, whose tweets were some of the ones that the Actman talked about throughout his video? Oh yeah, Chris Rayguns! And which community was Chris a prominent member of? That's right, the skeptic community. Well, you know what they say, if it looks like a skeptic, if it talks like a skeptic, and it associates with skeptics.
And secondly, what? The dev deciding your main character name Humble Dick or some other shit and not allowing you to change would be like feature isn't additional options. What the hell is with this comparison? You can literally pick any name and you can change your pronoun. You don't even have to look at that pronoun. There's a special button to toggle that. Most people will miss it completely.
Vincent, I'll tell you what I told Actman. In order to play Starfield, you have to create a character first. And one of the choices you're forced to make when creating a character is your character's preferred pronouns. Following that, if you're somebody who doesn't agree with modern gender ideology, then it's wrong of the game to force you to buy into it by selecting your character's preferred pronouns regardless of if you actually need to mess with the option in order to move on to the game. Because the choice is being forced upon you by virtue of you needing to create a character before you can play it. Just like it would be wrong for Starfield to force a name onto your character without allowing you to change it. Following that, trying to defend these forced choices by arguing that they are actually adding more features to the game is utterly nonsensical, since the open-ended character customization of Bethesda RPGs are why those games are popular in the first place. There. Did that clear up Razorfist's comparison for you? And as for your whole, you don't even have to look at the pronoun, most people will miss it completely argument, well, I've already debunked it time and time again throughout this drama, so instead of just repeating myself, I'll just turn the logic back around on you. If you don't like what Razorfist or I are saying, then you can just ignore us. There, your argument has just been refuted, courtesy of the School of Dumbass Logic.
You know what, as such a gentleman, when he saw that pronoun at the end, he knew it. The wokeness just called to him. Yeah, I guess people just get a pass for talking fast, being entertaining, and somewhat amusing.
Get a pass? Are you implying that we don't think Az's criticisms are valid? Because that's not true at all. Razorfist and I agree with Az 100%. What we're giving him a pass for is the way he delivered his criticisms, since his over-the-top anger was done for the purposes of being funny, which you just admitted to, considering that you found his rant a little humorous. Also, when the hell did Az talk fast during his rant? He talked pretty slowly, if you ask me.
But to make the claim there is any argument here is simply absurd to me.
Vincent, I'm not even sure you know what anyone's arguing half the time.
And Alex the Critic just showed the Actman tweet like anything Razorfist said actually countered anything when he just flashed it himself. Real quickly.
Again, Vincent, do you know the argument I was even making? Let me explain all of this for you. Ephrom was claiming that Razorfist's jumping off point was the skeptics making fun of Az.
And second, hopefully now you know precisely why I called these cockholsters out on their fair weather fucking bullshit years ago. In retrospect, it's abundantly clear most of the skeptisphere on YouTube only attacked Anita in a failed Freudian attempt to distance their own brand of authoritarian collectivism from hers. Hell, most of these motherfuckers make her look moderate these days.
You know, I'm not going to sit here and act like it's impossible that actually all the YouTube skeptics did become authoritarian collectivists while I wasn't looking, but I am going to say that I find it weird you're using as a jumping off point to discuss this, them making fun of somebody for being angry at non-binary gender options in a video game.
And I responded to that by contesting if this was even a jumping off point to begin with, and arguing instead that it was the general criticisms that the skeptics had for Az that Razorfist had a problem with.
First of all, that was not Razorfist's jumping off point. In fact, at no point throughout that clip does Razorfist ever say, "You're not allowed to poke fun of people who are on my side, or else you're a collectivist authoritarian"? Instead, he goes off on these skeptics for, quote, shitting on Az, which could mean joking about him, but could also mean criticizing him for bullshit reasons. And I have reason to believe that it's the latter he takes issue with, since there are numerous times throughout his rant where he goes after their arguments, some of which you go on to play in your own damn video.
After hours laboring in vain to write the first funny fat joke of their wasted lives, they all seem to settle on a single talking point, and what they loosely construe for an argument can be distilled to the following. What's the big deal? Pronouns are part of the English language. This video is just the same as a feminist freakout. Pinko pronouns, particularly those you have no option to disable in-game, aren't a feature any more than some asshole dev deciding your main character's named Humperdinck or some shit and not allowing you to change it would be a fucking feature. This isn't the addition of options, it's the excision of them.
For the love of all things holy, one of the tweets Razorfist cited when discussing these skeptics was from the Act Man, and something tells me he wasn't joking when he posted this. So unless you want to tell me otherwise, I think you need to get your head re-examined. What point isn't being countered here exactly?
Then dismiss the guy.
Wait a minute, how was I dismissing Actman? I was pointing out that the tweet I flashed wasn't a joke. How is that dismissing him?
With the generalization.
Which one of us are you criticizing for generalizing here? If it's Razorfist, then this point is irrelevant because that has nothing to do with what I was saying. If it's me, well, I've already explained why my characterization of Actman isn't a generalization, so once again Vincent is just proving himself a moron here.
That makes me think overall this whole thing is rather absurd.
Finally, the one thing I think we can both agree on.
In fact, continuing any longer sort of is coming up absurd to me, at least in this format.
Thank God. I was beginning to think that I was trapped in this vortex where I would forever have to respond to Vincent's shitty arguments.
There's so many questions I have, but you know what? There's plenty of points I didn't actually address. Plenty of questions I would have, but I really find people going, why? Why do you think that? Sort of like Alex the Critic did to Ephrom here in this video.
You really find it what, Vincent? You forgot to add a modifier to that sentence, dumbass. I'm going to guess that he's saying he finds it dumb or counterproductive, but that didn't stop him from bragging to me about how he was going to make this very video on me, and then uploading said video to his channel, without ever once trying to get a conversation going between the two of us. So, you know what, Vincent? If you're perfectly fine doing all of that, then I reserve the right to respond to people's arguments however the fuck I want to.
So, you know what? I'm going to tag everyone involved in this response chain, even Razorfist, no matter how stupid it is. I'll place my contact info in the description down below for my Twitter and Discord. If you want to argue, discuss, anything like that, just shoot me a message. DMs should be squeaky clean. You can use the comments if you really want. Check my Discord, even though I hate it generally. And I try to live stream once a week if you want to do it for a live stream.
Wow, that sounds like a great offer, Vincent. Here's my response to that.
Jog on.
Once again, the fucking nerve of this douchebag infuriates me. Even if I wanted to debate anyone on this topic, which I don't, but even if I did, why in the name of all things holy would I argue about it with you after you've spent the last half hour misconstruing, if not outright lying, about many of my arguments and attacking my character? I would much rather run my dick through a meat grinder. With that said, we are done with Vincent's video, which means that I can finally move on to my final thoughts about all this. One of the main edicts I try to live by when making response videos is to always give my opponents the benefit of the doubt. If they make a point that could easily be construed as them advocating for something horrible, I will generally assume that they merely misworded themselves, or I'll try to steelman their position, because I find that to be the respectful thing to do. If they happen to do some fucked up things behind the scenes, or have any easily insultable character traits, I will usually refrain from mentioning them in my response, or using them to invalidate any of the points they make in the video of theirs I'm responding to, as whatever skeletons they may or may not have in their closets have nothing to do with whether or not their criticisms are valid or invalid. That is why I didn't denigrate Doodle Tones for his diaper fetish when he and I beefed over my Mr. Enter video, even though I easily could've. Unfortunately, when I saw these two videos for the first time, I decided to forego that rule. Why? Because these two videos are chock full of the most dirty, underhanded, and dishonest arguments I've ever had to suffer through in my time as a content creator. And if you've been following my channel for any amount of time, then you know that's saying a lot. The arguments I debunked today could only be made by irrational jackasses who are more interested in scoring a point for their ideological side than they are in engaging in an honest conversation about Az's Starfield rant. And when your opponents are irrational jackasses who refuse to entertain facts and logic, then tell me, what exactly is the upside of giving them the benefit of the doubt? Optics? Please, I stopped giving a shit what people think about me months ago. That's why, once this commentary goes up, I'm going to be ignoring whatever videos and comments are made in response to it. It's not that I won't be able to debunk whatever nonsense people pull out of their ass to defend my targets, it's just that I'm beyond tired of talking about this drama. With all of that said, I would like to conclude my part in this saga by giving one final summary of Ephrom's and Vincent's videos. In regards to Ephrom's video, this comment left by a fan of mine perfectly encapsulates the main issue it suffers from, so I'll just read it aloud for you. Quote, Ephrom's commentary in a nutshell. Ephrom says stupid point. Alex, hey, that point doesn't make sense. Ephrom, either when did I say that, or no, I didn't say point that I actually said. I said point that I didn't actually say. Honestly, I think the title of Begging the Question the Commentary would be more appropriate for this response than the original video, because at least Ephrom's original video was attempting to address Razor's vid. Meanwhile, his response is just being befuddled by and misunderstanding every criticism you throw his way. As for you, Vincent, well, here's all I'll say. Your video is the worst one that anyone will probably ever make about me, bar none. You two are the embodiment of everything that's wrong with political discourse on the internet, and I sincerely hope that nobody takes any inspiration from either of y'all. I'm Alex a Critic, and I'll see you guys next time.